Guess what we're talking about today, friends? Okay, first of all, this is not 20s, okay? So let's strip away all the fakery, all the things that Hollywood has told us about what the 1920s are. I know we've talked about this a little bit before, and Carolina Zabrowska has a really great video about this, is that when we think about the 20s, our ideas and perceptions are usually off. I'm not saying that if you are just starting out and this is what you can do and you think that this is what it is, that you're not welcome, okay? Because you are. Everybody is welcome. Even if you are a person who's like, I just want to be cute and I don't want to put a lot of effort into going to this party or this event and I just want to feel pretty. Like, you're welcome too. The community should be very welcoming. Costuming events belong to everyone. When we're talking about what is real and what is not real, that's what I'm getting into today. That's what I want to show you. And actually, I have two different pieces that we're going to look at. One is from the early 1920s and one is from the later 1920s. These are the two dresses we'll be looking at today. The black is an early 1920s silk dress with beaded trim. The blue is a silk satin dress from the late 20s, and we'll be looking at that one later in the video, so please stick around. This is the early 1920s piece, and so let's take a little walk through time. I have it lined here so that you can see these two separate pieces of this garment. There is an underdress and there's an overdress. They are connected at the back waist, but that is the only place. So these really function as two separate pieces connected in one small area. Okay, so what we got going on here, we have this underdress, and this is really more, the structure of this, I mean, it is very light, it's a silk fabric. Is really more aligned with the late 19-teens than with the, say, later 1920s styles, because you can see we kind of have the waist where it's supposed to be. If we open up this little dicky area, this closes down the front with hooks and eyes. And then if we undo those and undo a whole heck of a lot of snaps, we can open up the skirt area. You can see that the waistband in here is very similar to what you would see in a 19-teens waistband. In a lot of skirts you will see grosgrain ribbon used or some other type of cotton tape used to add structure to the waistband. Okay, so we open that up. And the construction here is really a little, I mean, because of the layers over layers, it's a little overwrought, but it's pretty simply done. I mean, if we look under here, we can see that these are two separate pieces. The skirt and the bodice of this underdress were made separately and then sewn together. We can see that this waistband is attached with like a running stitch, or maybe a running back stitch, and we can also see here, where this underdress is attached to the overdress. We have a lot of edges that are fairly raw, however they are overcast. Has a seam down the side. The placket is sewn into a seam, which is actually the easiest way to do it. Do have some darts up here at the waist to kind of give some shape, and there's some tucks back here, and that could just be sloppy workmanship, but who am I to judge, right? Okay, but if we close this up, it closes with many snaps. So 5 up, and 1 hook at 4 and a hook at an eye up to about here, and then we have areas where there should be snaps and there are not. Actually, also this closes with hook and eye, and then Okay. Now, when we close this up with hooks and eyes, there are several there. And then we simply fold this over. There are 3 snaps to keep it in place. One here at the neck, and then 2 on the side here. This hem is weighted, so there's nothing to really close that. They're just counting on that weight to hold it in place and keep it secure. Okay, so moving down to the skirt, you can see this is just, it's very, very plain, but you can also see a little change in color here. This is not, I don't think it's from the sun just because of how the overskirt goes, but there is a stitch right across where we have this color change. So the hem here is also weighted, and you can see in some of the areas where it has worn through the metal cording that's in there. And so that's one of the reasons why this dress is very heavy, is that cording. Now also when we flip this up, we can see that the cording is also just turned into the hem. Now we have a weird button here that's probably just an extra button sewn in so you don't lose it, I assume, but I do not know. And then we can see how this hem is faced. So this is a separate piece, and then this is just turned up. So inside over here we have a button. Now the insides here are pretty messy. It's I don't know. It looks like it's just been draped. It doesn't look like it's come from a pattern. It's actually really cool, but still, you know, it's just kind of strange. So we're going to pull this top part over and button it. Okay. Alright. And then, while we have this open, now here, let's look at this a little bit. We have these cartridge pleats, which are really, really fabulous. And then beading, this metallic beading that connects the fabric of the dress to the cartridge pleats, and then another row on the other side of the cartridge pleats connecting the fabric of the dress. If we flip this in, we can see that again, we can see the running stitches first of all in here. But we can also, like, the tape is kind of coming up in some areas, and so we can see that these are just whipped to the cartridge pleats to hold everything in place. Alright, so that goes like that. And then we bring this side over. And there's a button on this side. We have all these gathers, like on both sides, and they're pretty sloppy. I mean, honestly, you know, we can see then here how the skirt is attached to the top, and also how the inner dress is attached to the outer dress. But I mean, it just seems so strange to have all of this time-consuming, really well done stuff, and then get to here and have something like this. I mean, and it's both sides are like that. It's just very strange to me to see this. Like all the work that had to be done up here, and then you get here and just like, whatever, let's just gather up this crap and get it done. I mean, and it's like, you know, you have raw edges peeking out. On the sleeves, we have this detail. It's just really cool. And this is one piece that if I could fit into it, it would have been on my body at least once. Just to like prance around for a minute and just kind of like shimmy those beads a little. So then the look that we get here on the skirt, we have these nice layers. that fold over our overdress. And then at the sides, we have these pretty like handkerchief end details that hang down on each side. So we have this detail that continues down around the back. One really cool detail that you can see back here is a seam. So this isn't even bias cut. There is a seam right here sticking out right at the top of this ridge of this pleat. And there is sort of a directionality to it, especially over here, and I don't know if that's because it's been stored, I store it flat. I hope not, because, you know, I try to keep things so that they have enough room and that there's not a lot of weight on top of them. So, but it seems like there's some directionality to sort of cover up where this is attached to the actual fabric of the bodice. Now, when we get to this again, it is just a mess. Look at this. I mean, we've got puckering, like, it's a disaster, my friends, a disaster. Look. There really just wasn't a lot of time taken or care in how they attached the bodice to the skirt. And again, I'm like, why? You did all of this work. Why, when you get to this relatively simple area, are you just like, screw it, I'm done, I'm out, I just need to finish it? And maybe it was one of those situations. Maybe it was just like, I need to finish this right now. Maybe it was for an event. The 1920s pieces, gosh, I'm tripping on my cord, is sleeve edges and neck edges are usually bound instead of just hemmed. This piece does not have that. However, when you get down here, and I didn't even notice this before until I flipped this over just now, these edges are bound. This is not a fold over and hem situation. These are bound. But the cool thing is we do have this little bit of interest added because we have these sort of tails back here. And when we lift them up, we can see the disaster that is this piece. So here's our skirt fabric, here is the bodice fabric, here is the underdress that's sewn in with just like weird kind of lazy darts put in. Yeah, I love it. Editing Christine here to break into this video with an urgent message. I forgot to give you some very key information during the filming of the video. Measurements. So, black dress is across the bust from seam to seam, 19 inches, the waist is 16 inches, and the hip is 21 inches. So, there you go. Things that you should know. The black dress is also made of silk. It is, when I say it has metallic beading, it has metal beads, which increase the weight, as does the weights that are used in it, which I'll show you a little bit further in the video. So, as you like. Okay, Editing Christine is back, and I'm really mad at filming Christine because she apparently doesn't know what she's doing. Okay, the blue dress is going by length and also shape, mid to late 1920s. And when I say mid, I mean like 24 to probably like 27, 28, when the style started changing more into that like 1930s silhouette. Now, to compare the two, I gave you the measurements of the black dress earlier, and that it did have some waist definition. This dress does not. It is very A-line, going from the shoulder all the way to the hem. So from shoulder seam to shoulder seam, it's 15 inches. At the bust and the waist, it's 18 inches. The hip is 20, and the hem is 40. So that's a circumference of 80 inches there at the bottom. So it is very A-line from top to bottom. So let's get to compare those two things. Now, this blue dress is really I think she's really sweet. She's not very heavily adorned, but what she's got is very intentional, and I just find that like so awesome, right? So she's got little bits of lace detailing on her, and there's a very interesting way in which the fabric was used. I did not film this in a way that I'm proud of, so it's gonna seem jumpy and it's gonna seem disjointed, and I apologize for that. But if you can stick to it through the end, if you've made it this far, please do, because this piece is actually a really special piece, and I'm really glad to show it to you, especially since the next few weeks it's going to be 1920s all up in this. So this is sort of in preparation for some sewing projects that I'll be doing, and maybe you'll be doing sewing projects too. I mean, it is 1920, it is 2021. It's been a long week, right? It's only Monday. Anyway, so I'm going to hand you back to my irresponsible friend, Filming Christine, and she's going to tell you a little bit about this dress. And there are some interesting ways in which this fabric has been used. So if we look at the collar, we can see that it's kind of matte. It's not as shiny as the rest of the fabric. However, it is the same fabric. They've just used the underside, which I think is kind of genius. And I'm like, what can I make now? And then I remember that I'd have to buy satin, and how much satin is a yard, so maybe no. We also have this like little peak of lace at the neckline, and they've only done it on the front, doesn't go around to the back, but it's really just sweet little bits of lace here. This also closes with one snap, and I'm always like amazed by people who can close garments with snaps, because I made one dress that closed down the side with snaps one time and it just kept popping open, so I've not done that since. Another interesting detail here at the shoulders, we have these little tucks, and they are, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 little tucks right at the shoulder. They do not go to the back, and here you can see they're just tiny little 1/8 of an inch tucks. And the fun part is that they've left silk thread, just left those threads hanging. Love that. All right. So that's really all there is to sort of this shoulder neck area, other than this ruffle. Goes all the way down to, you know, past, well, maybe past the bust. Then here down the front of the gown, we have scallops, and these edges are bound with bias binding of the same material. Again, they've used the wrong side of the fabric, so it is more matte, but it adds a little bit of interest. So we have these little bits of lace that have been added into this scalloping detail down the front. Then we get to sort of the waist, where we have, again, this reverse of, I don't want to call it a ruffle, it's not gathered, but this little loose waistband fold of piece of fabric here, again, using the matte side, which, geez. It also has these little mouse tooth, I don't know how to call them, edging, and that's on the ruffle at the collar as well. If you look under here, see this is machine stitched, but then we can see that it's been hand whipped. The edge of the fabric has been finished. We can also see, you know, that this is just added on top. This is not, oh, no, that's not true. We'll take a look at that inside. This piece looks as though it is, you know what, I'm gonna reach in here. I wanna reach in here and I wanna check. Okay. Yeah, Okay, so this is a separate piece from the top and the skirt, and you can sort of see it's a little bit different, and that's because instead of using the fabric on grain, they've gone cut this from the width of the fabric, not the length, and so it adds another little bit of interest. Skirt again is on the length of the fabric, and then here at the waist, right at the side, we have this little guy just kind of tacked on, hanging out, just a little ribbon, you know, hanging out there at the waistband. The sleeves on this piece are very narrow. It's one of kind of my favorite things about the 20s, the sort of when you have a long sleeve, how narrow it is. But sometimes you do have a bishop sleeve. But again, we have these little accents of lace, and they close with a snap so that you can get your arm, your paw, in and out of that sleeve. Now when we get down to the skirt, so you can kind of see the curve in the hem, right? It does curve up at the sides. Each side does have a little gusset panel in here, just along the selvages, and French seams. And that is repeated on both sides. One of the interesting aspects to this piece is this thread. Where am I? There we go. This white thread is used throughout. So we do have a lot of issues in the underarms. This is where most of the damage has occurred. The other areas where the garment is very fragile is around the neck. And you can feel a difference in the silk from, say, here to here, and you can feel that it's drier. You can actually, if I fold it back, you might be able to see that there is a color change right here. And let me see if I can bring you in to see that. Yeah, so there's a color change here, and I wonder if there was like a slip or something worn under this that protected the garment, except for right there along the neck. As far as the armpits go, that's par for the course. It's where there's a lot of friction, and it's where there's a lot of body oils, perspiration happening. They're all things that will weaken your fabric. But there's not a whole lot going on in the back, honestly. There is the continuation of the collar, some wear and some shattering all along here, and this area at the shoulder where the seam has just split, and this is not something I can repair because essentially the thread has just kind of cut the fabric. We have the continuation of this ruffle, and that's about it. Sort of little plain Jane dress. The color is the star here. Do have some soiling on the front, but nothing too terrible. If you've hung around this long, congratulations. Thank you very much. I need your input though. If you're still here, I need you to help me make a decision, or two decisions actually, because the next few weeks I'm going to be doing some stash busting, and I'm going to be making two 1920s pieces, one an earlier 1920s dress and another later 1920s dress, but I have several options, and so I need you to help me narrow it down. So for early 1920s, you may have seen the 1 hour dress, and I bought this booklet on Etsy from Merritt's Closet, and this is from a booklet published in 1924, and you can see there's longer hems, and we don't really have any nipped in waist here, but we do have the low kind of hip. And so this is the 1 hour dress, and I've made one before and it wasn't a 1 hour dress, it's a 4 hour dress, but I'd like to try to do it again. And so this is an option. I can make the 1 hour dress. The other option for the early 1920s, and I think this pattern is 1923, I can now not remember. but I have an original 1920s pattern. It's a McCall's pattern. It's a little shiny. You can see there's actually two pieces. You have to make a slip and then the dress, but this is the other option. So I could do the 1 hour dress, or I could work from an extant pattern. And just in case you're really worried about me handling this pattern, when I have work with antique or vintage patterns, I always trace them. So I actually don't have to use this at all. I use this. So that's option number 2. Now for late 20s, I have 2 patterns that I've never made. I've had these in my stash for quite some time and never made them. This is from the Vintage Pattern Lending Library, Ladies Frock. So this is option A, we'll call it. And then we have this new Butterick pattern. We'll call this option B, right? So let me know what you want to see, which you want to see made up, if I can make them up. I'm a little scared of these, but I'll try it. And which early 20s pattern you want to see made up, and that will be our next few weeks worth of videos. And those will be vlogs, which I feel like I'm better at those than these. I don't know what's happening. So let me know what you think down in the comments, and like per usual, if you like this video, if you found any value in it, hit that thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe. Wear a mask and be kind, and we'll see you next time. Bye.